On April 25, 1935, a crowd gathered at Sydney's Coogee Aquarium baths, one of Australia's most popular seaside attractions. Families and tourists leaned over the edge of the giant tank, excited to see a 15-foot tiger shark that had been captured a few days earlier off Coogee Beach. The shark swam in slow, menacing circles, drawing gasps from children and whispers from parents. Then, suddenly, the massive predator lurched violently toward the glass, its body convulsing as if something was terribly wrong. In front of the stunned audience, the shark regurgitated the half-digested remains of a meal. At first, the crowd laughed, thinking they had witnessed nothing more than the shark's stomach rebelling. But when the contents floated to the surface, gasps turned to horror. Among the watery remains was an unmistakable object, a human arm. And not just any arm. This was no accident of the sea, for wrapped around the wrist was a length of twine. The limb had been cleanly severed with a knife, not torn by a shark's teeth. Suddenly, the cheerful atmosphere of the aquarium became a scene of panic and revulsion. Parents ushered children away from the tank, and the police were called immediately. This bizarre discovery, a shark spitting up a human arm, would set in motion one of the most infamous and strangest murder investigations in Australian history. It became known as the Shark Arm Murder, a case that blended underworld dealings, betrayal, and brutal violence with a gruesome twist of fate that no one could have imagined. The arm was quickly retrieved and sent for forensic examination. What investigators found was shocking. The arm bore a distinct tattoo, a figure of two boxers sparring. This detail would prove crucial, for tattoos were relatively uncommon at the time and often tied to personal or criminal associations. Within days, the police were able to match the tattoo to a missing man, James Smith, a 45-year-old former boxer. Known to his friends as Jim, Smith was more than just a boxer. He was a known figure in Sydney's underworld, a man with ties to shady business dealings, gambling circles, and suspected criminal enterprises. His sudden disappearance had gone largely unnoticed in a city bustling with crime and corruption during the turbulent 1,930 seconds. But the reappearance of his arm inside a shark changed everything. The question now was chilling. How had Smith's arm ended up inside the shark? Investigators quickly determined that the shark had not killed Smith. Clean severing of the limb indicated a sharp blade wielded by human hands. The twine suggested an attempt to bind or dispose of the body. The shark had merely swallowed the arm after it had already been discarded, making it an accidental witness, or perhaps the strangest accomplice in a murder case. The police soon uncovered that Smith had been associated with two men, Patrick Brady, a forger with a reputation for shady dealings, and Reginald Holmes, a wealthy businessman with a respectable public face but a double life in crime. Holmes, in particular, was an intriguing figure. On the surface, he was a successful boat builder and businessman, but beneath this facade, he was deeply entangled in fraud, smuggling, and other underworld schemes. The ties between Holmes, Brady, and Smith pointed investigators toward a dangerous triangle of betrayal. The story unfolded with a chilling sequence of events. Patrick Brady, police learned, had been seen drinking with James Smith on the night Smith disappeared. Witnesses later reported seeing Brady leave with Smith, but only Brady was seen afterward. Smith never returned home. The next day, Brady appeared at the home of friends, nervous and disheveled. According to testimony, he spent the evening frantically cutting up papers, burning them, and trying to conceal something. His hands were trembling, but no one yet knew the grisly truth. Soon after, Brady was arrested and questioned. Though he denied involvement, suspicions grew stronger. Police theorized that Brady had killed Smith during a dispute, perhaps over money or criminal dealings. Then, in a desperate attempt to cover his tracks, he dismembered the body, disposing of parts of it at sea. But Brady was not alone in this story. The trail led directly to Reginald Holmes. Holmes was the kind of man who moved effortlessly between Sydney's glittering high society and its darkest criminal underworld. He owned expensive yachts, dressed immaculately, and cultivated the image of respectability. Yet behind the scenes, he was deeply involved in fraudulent insurance claims, smuggling operations, and shady partnerships with men like Smith and Brady. Police discovered that Smith had been pressuring Holmes over a fraudulent deal. Tensions had risen. When Smith disappeared, suspicion quickly fell on Holmes as the man who may have orchestrated his murder, with Brady as the hired hand. The case took another bizarre turn when police attempted to confront Holmes. Instead of cooperating, Holmes embarked on a wild speedboat chase across City Harbor. In a scene that seemed pulled from a gangster film, Holmes piloted his boat recklessly across the water while officers pursued him. After hours of chase, Holmes finally attempted to shoot himself in the head with a pistol. Miraculously, the bullet failed to kill him, grazing his skull. He was rescued and taken into custody. Now, the public was captivated. A severed arm inside a shark, a missing man, a shady forger, and a wealthy businessman who had just tried to kill himself. The newspapers had a field day, splashing the story across front pages. It was dubbed the Shark Arm Murder Case, and it quickly gripped the imagination of Australians nationwide. Holmes, once stabilized, began to talk. He confessed that he had indeed been involved in criminal dealings with Smith and Brady. He admitted that Smith had been blackmailing him and that Brady had killed Smith, dismembered the body, and disposed of it. Holmes described the gruesome details and agreed to testify against Brady in court. But just as the case seemed on the verge of resolution, fate struck again with another twist as strange as the shark itself. On the very morning Holmes was due to testify in court against Brady, he was found dead in his car, shot in the chest 3 times. The murder of Reginald Holmes stunned the nation. He had been under police watch, yet someone had managed to silence him before he could give evidence. With Holmes gone, the Crown star witness vanished, leaving the case against Brady fatally weakened. Brady was brought to trial, but without Holmes's testimony, the prosecution struggled to prove the charges. The jury found Brady not guilty of murder, though his reputation was forever tainted. He lived out his life in obscurity, never shaking the cloud of suspicion. As for James Smith, only his arm was ever recovered. The rest of his body was never found. The Shark Arm murder has remained one of the most infamous unsolved cases in Australian history. It is a case that defies belief, a grisly killing uncovered, not by police work or confessions, but by sheer accident. When a shark vomited up the evidence, it was a story of crime, betrayal, and fate with a bizarre twist that captured the imagination of generations. To this day, the case remains unsolved. No one was ever convicted for Smith's death. The questions linger. Who ultimately killed him? Was Brady the lone killer? Or was Holmes more deeply involved than anyone admitted? And who silenced Holmes before he could speak? The sea gave up one clue in the form of a severed arm, but the deeper truth remains swallowed by history. Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If you found this story chilling, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest mysteries. And tell us in the comments, do you believe Patrick Brady was guilty? Or was Reginald Holmes the real mastermind behind the Shark Arm murder? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe,